A growing crisis in the Strait of Hormuz has now raised serious concerns for India's energy security, fuel supply, and economy. As tensions continue in West Asia, attention has shifted towards India's strategic oil reserves and emergency preparedness. The situation has become so serious that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has appealed to citizens to save fuel and use energy responsibly. The development comes amid fear that any long-term disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz could directly impact India's fuel imports, transportation costs, and inflations. But first, let us understand why the Strait of Hormuz is so important. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most critical oil shipping route. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea and carries a massive portion of the world's crude oil and natural gas exports. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and the UAE, Kuwait, and Iran use this route to transport energy supplies to major economies around the world. India is heavily dependent on crude oil imports, and a large percentage of those imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz. That means any conflict, blockade, military escalation, or shipping disruptions in the region can immediately affect India's energy supply chain. Now, amid the ongoing US-Iran tensions and military uncertainty in the Gulf region, reports suggest shipping movement near Hormuz has slowed down significantly. Insurance costs for oil tankers have risen, freight charges are increasing, and global crude prices have already started reacting sharply. International analysts warn that if the route faces a prolonged disruption, countries dependent on imported oil, including India, may face fuel shortages, price spikes, and supply pressures. This is why India's strategic petroleum reserves are now under the spotlight. Strategic petroleum reserves, often called emergency oil reserves, are massive underground storage facilities created to protocol the country during global supply disruptions. These reserves are meant to provide temporary relief if crude imports suddenly stop or become severely restricted. According to reports, India currently has strategic reserves capable of meeting around several weeks of emergency oil demand, along with additional stock held by oil companies. Together, these reserves are considered a critical safety buffer during geopolitical crises. At the same time, the government is monitoring the situation closely. Officials say there is no immediate panic, but preparedness are being strengthened to deal with any possible escalation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's appeals to conserve fuel is being seen as a prevention message aimed at reducing unnecessary consumption and encouraging responsible energy use during uncertain time. Experts say even if India has sufficient reserves for the short term, a prolonged global conflict could still create economic pressure. Why? Because higher crude oil prices affect almost every sector of the economy. When crude oil prices rise, petrol and diesel price increase, transportation becomes expensive, food delivery and logistics costs rise, inflation increases, airline fares may go up, manufacturing costs become higher, and eventually the common public feels the impact through rising daily expenses. India imports nearly 85% of its crude oil need, which makes the country vulnerable to global energy disruption. Any sharp rise in oil price also puts pressure on the Indian rupee and increasing the country's import bill. Another major concern is natural gas supply. The Strait of Hormuz is also a key route for LNG, liquefied natural gas shipment. India import LNG for industries, electricity generation and household use. If LNG supply slow down, sector dependent on gas may also face higher operational cost. Meanwhile, global markets are already reacting nervously. International crude prices have shown volatility since tensions increased in West Asia. Investors are worried that if the conflict expands or shipping lanes are blocked, oil prices could rise even further in the coming weeks. Some analysis believes crude oil prices could cross major psychological levels if the situation worsens. That would create additional inflation pressure not only in India but across many economies globally. However, there is also some relief. India has been working over the years to diversify its energy imports and strengthen oil storage capacity. The government has signed agreements with multiple countries and expanded strategic reserves infrastructure to improve long-term energy security. This report also suggests India is exploring alternative shipping routes and supply arrangement in case Gulf routes face severe disruption. That's all for now. Stay tuned with us for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe our channel.